Started our last conversation with just a little bit of background. We know that you've been in the league for what is this, 15? What?
Yeah,
15,
15.
yeah.
Fifth, man, that's a long stretch in any professional sport. So, obviously there's some obstacles that you've had to overcome. So, if you could kind of take us through that journey and how you've managed to stick around so long, we'd love to hear those stories.
Uh, I mean, it's a lot of obstacles. A lot of obstacles. To keep it brief, I came in '07. Um, for me, I grew up in Maryland, DC area. Uh, you say you talked to Will, so I'm about 45 minutes south of where Will is from. Kind of the same area, but not. But it's a county of Maryland. Been there my whole life, never been outside of the DC, Maryland, Virginia area until college. I get drafted in '07. I go to Seattle, Washington, probably the furthest city, NBA city at the time, uh, by myself. And that in itself was an obstacle for me as far as growing up. I was 20 when I was drafted. So, going into that situation, being able to now be a grown up, something you want when you getting in, 18, 19, it's time to be a grown up. So for me, it happened very quick. And living in Seattle, having to do basically everything on my own was pretty tough. Secondly, we move after the first year, we go to OKC. Then it goes from, a great city to a city that's developing, you can say, to an NBA city, again, alone. So just being with myself and, learning what it takes to be an adult for me was probably the toughest adjustment to going into the NBA. Then moving along, probably in 2012, I had a health scare, which I had to put my NBA career on hold for a year. I had heart surgery in 2012, and I missed a whole year. That was probably the toughest obstacle I've ever been through in my life. Um, you know, Gave me different perspectives on life. Um, Made me, appreciate basketball, family, time in itself. Um, all the way. It made me appreciate everything way more. The game of basketball, and just dealing with you know everything as a young adult, family, the moving, this new life I'm embarking on. It was a tough road, but it developed character in the long run, which made me who I am today.
When we talked to Morgan and Wayne to set these interviews up, I'll just shoot straight with you. We asked to talk to players with grit. We wanted to talk to players that have been through some things and overcome obstacles, because this show and this podcast and everything that we're doing is speaking to young people that
Yeah.
may be going through some tough times or have tough times ahead of them. So we want to emphasize perseverance and overcoming things like that. And those were things I had no idea that you had been through.
Yeah.
That's tough.
But it's I mean, the heart scare. I mean, it's something that, I mean, obviously is out there. Everybody, has been a story told. But it's everybody just hears it, but they don't know, the details of, everything as far as, I was probably diagnosed uh with the enlarged, root of the valve, probably my freshman year in college, but it didn't expand to the point they had to red flag it. So basically, I go 6 years of playing with physicals, with everything, until it was, red flag that I had to have surgery. And, that's something that, I was 25 at the time, just reaching, my peak of, trying to establish who I am in the NBA. And when I got the call, when I got the information, I only had one friend next to me who I grew up with. And, I mean, like I started off, it was, being alone, taking, you know, my life, my adulthood, on track by myself, but I had one friend there to console with. But, it's something that, you know, that kind of just changed my outlook on life, and it happens to always, it comes in different ways. It comes, in different forms. And that was just my eye-opening life experience that I probably needed at the time, to really focus in on what I needed to do in life, or what I needed to do in, the rest of my career, and touching people, or, impacting people, while I play, that could be going through the same thing.
Yeah.
But damn, a wake up call is a wake up call. But a heart, you know what I mean? Like that's the, that's a message from God. That's coming down from the heavens, right? That's more than a wake up call.
Well, I mean, yeah, it is. It is more. But you in every obstacle, like you said, you always try to find, the reason. Like, you know, I was blessed enough to have doctors, have people that, reached out to the best doctors that gave me the opportunity to play again. So now it's, all right, what's the purpose? What's the purpose of, God giving me the second chance of, who am I here to impact? Who am I here to reach out to? Who am I here to touch with the words, with the testimony, whatever it is to help, and that's where, that the life changing experience came from. I never met anybody who had the surgery before, I had it. And then once I had it, it was like I was meeting somebody every week. And then I played in the NBA where the platform is even larger. So now it's the PSAs, it's the reaching out to people, talking to people, just having conversations with people. That's when it was like, okay, now I see a purpose. It's the inspiration, it's the motivation that, came from the surgery, and I've been fine ever since. So, it's just finding that purpose.
One more question, probably about this. So you said that you already knew, like 6 years prior to your surgery, that there was an enlarged valve. So while you were playing, was there any like precautions you had to take, or were you under a certain scope, or like how did that work? Did you just continue to go on your everyday life, knowing that you had an enlarged valve, or was there like still, were you still kind of on a tightrope with that?
Well, when I was informed of it in '07, it wasn't anything alarming. It was just like, oh, we see this in a lot of guys who, grow to be, this tall. They probably grew too fast, and this has happened. Like a lot of guys who get about 6'9", 6'10", they develop some type of, whether it's a hole in their heart that it isn't, serious. So that's where that conversation stood, and that's where it stopped. So the years after that, it was the regular checkups that you do before the season. I didn't have any, any dietary stuff that I had to, stand by, or, anything I had to really, take notice each year that I had a physical. I just, knew I had it. And, I probably after a year of knowing it, I forgot, because it wasn't, told to me every year. So I was just, going about my everyday life, and like nothing was wrong.
There's a even in doing this within the last hour, there's a cool thing that I've noticed, right? We have Bones on, who's 21, right? And then we have Will on, who's 31 and 35, right? And I'm seeing grown men, right? And I'm interested in hearing about growing up in the NBA, the maturity, that's gained, the life lessons, the business lessons, the things that you would pass down to Bones given the opportunity. Just those different things, because it's a different life than I guess what you would call a civilian, than the general public lives, and you have to grow up fast. So I'm interested in what the maturation process for you has been.
I wouldn't say it's a different life. I think people microscope it in a way that it seems different. But I mean, you have different occupations that sometimes can make, you know, as much as some of the guys in the NBA make. I think ours are just under a certain microscope because it's the entertainment factor that comes in the everyday, facet of, basketball. And but every occupation has what we go through, the financial problems that some guys go through, or the betrayal by financial people. But some of the information I try to just give down is some of the things that I've seen with my own eyes, or some of the stuff that I've been told from my vets, from when I was Bones age, was always try to do it yourself. Know where the checks are going, know where the money's coming from, learn how to say no. You name it, I've been told, and I've tried to tell to the young guys. But everybody has their own way of, learning. Everybody has their own way of going about, their finances, their NBA life. But growing up in the NBA is some pros and cons. For me, I'm a big family person. I rarely see my family. My mom and my dad, they both live in Maryland. My sister lives in Maryland. My two nieces live in Maryland. I rarely see them. I probably see them on a season. I would probably see my mom probably twice a year. I will see my dad probably a little bit more because he's able to travel and see some games, but that's a handful of times. Never see my nieces. I see them probably during spring break if we have a home stand. That's been probably the toughest thing for me. And now, 35, I have two kids, married, the travel in and out, seeing my daughters here and there, we travel a lot, so growing up in NBA, it's a lot of sacrificing. It's a lot of, things you have to, understand that you're going to be without, and, family is one of them, and it's been tough. It's been really rough, but, that's the sacrifices it takes if you want to, do great things. You have to, make those sacrifices.
Okay, so let's stay here a little bit. I'm interested to hear what are the three biggest lessons that you've learned in the past 15 years? The three things that
Say that one more time.
your three biggest lessons that you have learned in the past 15 years.
In no particular order. I mean, you know what I mean. They don't have to. It don't have to be the
Yeah.
first. You know.
For me, is value and time. I mean, when I was young, I was just on the go. It was, being able to do whatever I want, move how I want it. But now, with the family, is valuing the time. We go to practice in the morning, we come back. My kids are in school. Once they get from school, I'm there. I pick them up. I take them to school. When we're away, once first day I come back, no matter what time I come back, I'm up early trying to get through to school. Um, spending time, traveling, trying to get my family here, trying to, whether, like I said, I don't see them much, so I try to, value the time with them. Another thing is, for me is, learning, the financial part probably, being entrepreneur is, what a lot of people are trying to do now is, trying to, really be, a man, with the family, really trying to look after my own. And definitely, third was probably, helping the community. That's something I'm really big at. I'm big in, and, back where I'm from, I love, reaching out. I love, volunteering. I love speaking, um, giving the time again. So, those are three things that I learned over time as I got older. Because when I was younger, it was just like I got all the time in the world.
World.
You're invincible. Yeah, I can do whatever. But as you get older, you start to value, little things like just being in the NBA. Like I value just going to practice. I value the drive to practice. I value the conversations because I'm 15 years in. I mean, my window is closing. And I'm mentally I'm okay with that. I put in the time, so I know it's closing. So I've met vets who retired and never won wishes, man, I should have just, valued that, that conversation I had with the young fellow. I should have just valued the practices, the bus rides, and that's just my attitude, each day, the people I meet, I try to value the time because, one day from now, it could be gone. So, the NBA is something that's been special to me. It's helped me in many ways. So, I just try to value all that.
Trying to don't let me forget to circle back around to financial literacy.
Okay.
But I got a thought that's at the forefront of my mind. I need to get out because we talked to Bones and Will about their environment, right, and how that can shape you and impact you, whether it's a positive or negative impact that your environment can have on you. When you reflect on your adolescence and childhood, how has that impacted you and growing up, and whether that's a positive or negative way? And it's really important to me, the question, because I see there's a concentration, right, of talent from the East Coast and particularly from rougher cities. You know what I mean? And I've talked to some coaches that say there's something about growing up with a little bit of edge, right? That allows you to push through some things and make you that you see in elite athletes that you don't see elsewhere. So just interested in how that's impacted you and if you have that edge and where it came from, those kind of things.
Now, I wish my dad was here. He just left this morning because it all goes to him. So my dad he's from Norfolk, Virginia, but grew up in Southeast DC. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but when I was younger, on the basketball edge, what he would do, it was outside. He would take me to the court on Saturdays, grown men. I'm like maybe 11, 12. You just go play. I wasn't able to call no fouls. I wasn't able to do anything, respond, nothing. This is how you learn to grow, through the toughness, through playing, through contact, playing physical, everything. It starts here. And that's how I started. And it shaped me to be the guy who don't complain, play through the contact. I mean, sometimes it's a little too much about play through injury, but it's like, everybody be like, "You okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I have no reason to complain. Like, I can't complain. Why am I complaining?" And that stems from when I was 12, when my dad threw me on the court, like, "Hey, play with these grown men. They're gonna fire you. They're gonna be tough with you, and that's what it's gonna be." Like, my nickname was growing up was Big Baby because I was like taller than the normal age of my age, but I was the baby playing with the grown folks. And that's where it all started. It gave me character, developed my character, and it helped me in the long run as far as, when I got here, when I got to the NBA, it's 20 years old, guys are grown. And the league is different now. Back then, it was a lot more bigs. Like, it was grown, strong men, and it was, all right, you're going to get in this situation, you're going to play through everything, you're not going to complain, and this is how you're going to get better. And it shows character. And even in the neighborhoods, like I said, Will, he's from Baltimore. I'm 45 minutes south of Baltimore. Pretty much the same kind of areas. And you grow up and you see a lot of things, and it develops you. It helps form your character in life. You seen a lot of things growing up, and we get to this life, and it's like nothing can really phase you. It's about just adapting. It's about just growing from it. It's about learning. And that's what I had to do when I got older, was the learning and adapting, because I already seen, pretty much a lot of bad stuff, growing up. So now it's about just, learning from it, learning from those mistakes, learning from the stuff that I did when I was younger, and growing from it and becoming a better person.
I love that. So I know John is not on this call with us, but I am just interested in hearing from you. How does that feel to like have him back in the same vicinity as you, and has your guys' dynamic changed or stayed the same? Just give us a little bit of insight on that.
Oh, it's definitely stayed the same. He's like, if any closer to blood, that's like my family. It's amazing to be in the same realm, the same office, the same league, everything in the same group on the NBA level. Because in college, roommate freshman year, roommate junior year, that's all we talked about. Playing in the NBA. We never talked about being on the same team, but just getting to this level any way we could. Making a change any way we could, and to have him on, NBA office side, I'm still playing. Our relationship still hasn't changed. We talk every day. I talk to his family, talks to mine. He's over here. He sees my girls, my daughters. Our dynamic hasn't changed. It's just on a bigger scale, and we till this day we still try to brainstorm ways that we can help. Whether that's back at Georgetown, whether back in his community, my community, the community here in Denver. And that's what it's all about. It's friendships that, that grow, that stay strong, and that's able to, impact lives, and we're doing it together. And to be on this stage, it's a blessing. And, that's my brother, man. And, to see him doing so well, on that stage and seeing where he can take it and what he can do with it. I'm glad I'm able to see it firsthand here, here in Denver.
Man, I'm thinking that if that was me, I would test our relationship sometime. You know what I mean? Like I would go in and put my feet up on this desk and just hey, say, bro, so what's happening? You know what I mean? Like y'all partners, right? You know what I mean? Like you ever push the envelope a little bit with him? Like what you gonna do?
Nah, I try. This is he only a couple years in. I wouldn't Ricky Hayes him a little bit, but I'm gonna stay smooth. I'm gonna just try to help him understand. Because I've been doing 15 years, so I kind of seen both ways. So for me, it's all about just helping him. I will give him some grief here and there, but it's, it's opening his eyes as well. And when it does, that's when I was like, man, welcome. This is what it's all about. You're gonna see a lot of different things, so embrace it.
We earmarked the financial literacy piece. That's one of the things that has been huge in our community, huge in the podcast community, and we're trying to figure out how we can reach young people in our community here at Athletics and beyond. So I had a conversation with Ryan Harris. He played with the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl a few years back, and he talked about messing the money up, right? And being grateful for being able to actually stay in the league long enough to recover from that, right? 15 years is a long time, right? So not to get into your personal story, but how much of that do you see, how much of that, if you want to share any experience of those, but it's not common that you actually get a second chance after you have screwed up pretty badly.
So for me, like I'm big into NBA history. Like I love the game. I watched it as a young kid. So you would hear the stories, Anton Walker, the investments in the condos, losing all his money. Latrell Sprewell. You hear the stories, Eddie Carey, like you hear. And for me, it kind of shook me. So when I first got in the league, I was on a budget. I'm like, man, look, I don't know how long this is gonna last. I'm just trying to stay in this joint to the point where, if it's 5 years, I'm solid. If it's 10 years, I'm solid. If it's 2 years, I'm solid. So my first I'm gonna say my first 6 years, I put myself on a budget, and I was a little bit, hesitant as far as the investment as far as what I'm gonna put my money in because of the stories I heard. So I was already aware of some of the misfortunes that you can have if you're not, educated on a lot of the financial investments or, putting your money in, buildings or stores. I was already aware of that based off just the history of just guys in the NBA. And you would hear it in the locker room. So for me, I was scared. It wasn't until probably the last 5 or 6 years where I was like, okay, I think I've been in the league long enough where I saved enough from budgeting, from making sure my family's straight first, and then, came me. And then it was, all right, I'm cool now. All right. I saved enough where I can be like, all right, maybe I can put a little bit in this pot, a little bit in this pot. So my financial risk wasn't as big probably as some guys who was like, all right, I'm going all in. I like what your idea, and let's do it. And then it's gone. So based off history, I was like, man, look, I ain't doing it. I'm cool. I'm gonna let my money just sit a little bit, gain a little, 2% interest in the bank. Like, I'm cool, but when I get a little older, if I make it there, maybe, but I gotta educate myself first. So that's how I was, So thanks to the history of the NBA and the guys telling their story. So like the guy from Denver, him sharing his story can help the next football player who comes in. So like the stories of Anton Walker, Eddie Carey, Latrell Sprewell, them telling their story, it helped me. So now I'm aware of guys, hey man, I got this apartment building over in, Southeast DC. What do you think? No, I'm good. Oh, I got this apartment. No, I'm okay. Let me get settled in this first. So I waited. So it helped me. So I think for a lot of guys, it's about patience and educating yourself, because don't be quick to, thinking, oh, I can make a change. But then, that change might just be somebody who, is trying to benefit from you, but not trying to, benefit for the community. It's about just, all right, let me take this money and run with it, see what happens. Oh, it didn't work out. Oh, that's your money, not mine. So I'm cool. So I was, for me, it was about just being patient and just listening, because if I wouldn't have listened, I mean, who knows where my investments would be now.
He shared a story with me. He said he had a teammate that bought a Porsche, which was all fine and good, but not considering where you lived at. You know what I mean? You got to buy winter tires for the Porsche, oil change for the Porsche. Hey man, we got a lot of salt and gravel in Denver, man. Like, that may not be the move in Denver. You know what I mean? Like, so how many times do you see people not considering they surroundings when they're making their decisions? Like, hey man, you didn't think about the $2,000 tire for that Porsche. You know what I mean?
No, I'm not gonna lie. Out of my whole career, my biggest vice was cars. Like, before I met my wife, before I got in any relationship, like, it was, all right, I love cars. I didn't even have a house. Like, I lived with my dad. I bought my dad a condo my first year, and we lived together for my first 6 years during the summer. But I would get a car. I had probably 3 cars. Now that I think about it, it's like, why would I have 3 cars? Two would sit, and then I'll be driving one. Like you said, I played at the time. I was in Boston, so Boston is similar to Denver, but it's probably colder, and it snows probably a little bit more. So, and I had a 2-door Bentley, and it was like, I can't even drive this. So it's sitting in a garage. So that's a perfect example. It's like, the surroundings, I'm spending all this money on this car. It's sitting 8 months out of the year, but I'm paying this much. At the time, I was like, I don't care. But now I think about it, I was like, that was so stupid. But now, like, my life is very simple now. I got one car, and it's an SUV. I can drive it in the winter, and I can drive it in the summer.
There you go.
And that's where I'm at. And I'm like, it doesn't, like, that's what I said earlier about, sometimes you got to allow people to just grow. You got to allow people to just go through their mistakes. And that was mine, and I grew from that. Over time, it was like, Jeff, why are you doing this? You shouldn't be getting 3 cars. And I'm not going to lie. When I met my wife, she was the first one who was like, why do you have this? Why do you have? And I'm like, what do you mean why I have this? I work hard. And she was like, yeah, all right, you'll see. And I'm like, all right. And now I was like, you might have been right. Like,
That's how you
having those 3 cars, yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I was happy. I was like, you knew from the jump. That's why I love you. That's why I like you. That's why I like you. So, it worked out. But, everybody, has to go through their own pathways of, trying to figure their own life out and figure out where they did wrong, where they messed up, and how they can fix it. But, as to go back to what you said, being a 15-year vet and having a guy like Bones who's 21, my job is to inform you, oh, this is what I went through. This is what I've done. and you can take the information, you can do what you want with it, and now it's on you. So that's how it's been. That's how I like it. And you grow fast. You grow fast when you learn from it all, especially quickly. So
Yeah. Well, I thank you for taking the time and obviously just a ton of knowledge and wisdom that you dropped on us. We're going to kind of transition to a community conversation with Wayne and Morgan. But I do want to allow you a few moments to talk about things that may be going on in your community or things that are near and dear to your heart, just in terms of what's going on with young people and maybe even things that you'd like to do after you're done with the NBA.
well, I mean, in my community, back home in Maryland, for me, it's all about just trying to, impact and inspire. I have, all my relative, all my family, friends is that are there, and for me, it's I reach out through them. The kids, in my high school, my nephews who goes to the same high school I went to. It's all about impacting them, trying to figure out what they want to do in life and how my story and how my resources can kind of help them get to where they need to be. um and for me, that's what it's all about. It's about just giving back. I'm not a guy who is in the limelight about doing all that stuff, but I try to do it in a way where it's impactful as far as giving my time, them seeing my face. And the community is very important to me because I like to see where I came from grow a little bit more than when I was there. So if I could do that any way I can, as far as for me, it's education, because I know I had a teacher when I was in high school was saying, because I was so like into basketball, just basketball, and my grades weren't the greatest. Mr. Benjamin, I'll never forget him. He pulled me aside. He said, I want you to remember this: the material stuff you collect from this basketball, people can take away. But the knowledge that you gain from these books, from history, that's something that nobody can take away. And that's something that always stuck with me. So for me, it's about just trying to, get the youth ingrained in, the knowledge, the history of whatever they want to do, whatever occupation, whatever it is, just the history, the knowledge of where they're from, because that's something that's going to stick with you. So that's something that, for me, that I'm very passionate about. And like you said, and to answer your question about after basketball, I definitely want to try to get into the front office. Maybe I'll be next to John. You never know. Maybe he get a president job, and he give me a job. But I
No,
think for me, it's about just having a voice. Yeah, a voice in on the office side as a player, a guy who's played. I mean, if I stop now, 15 years that have seen everything in the NBA. Somebody who has been through everything in NBA. To have that voice on that side that'll also help the guys who haven't played us, in the NBA offices, that they can see it from a different light. So, that's my goal. When I start searching, I'm not sure. For me, I still have a lot of years left to play. So we'll see when that time comes.